Hey everyone, so this video is a crash course in test taking, calling it Test Taking 101. It's a guide to effective exam prep and execution. So it's a bit of a departure from what I usually do. I usually do language arts related stuff, but I had a question from someone about what to do in the middle of an exam if they can't think of what to write on, and it got me thinking that with all the tests I've taken and all the experience I have, I should probably put some kind of video together that at least outlines what I've found worked for me. I have 2 master's degrees, I've taken a lot of exams, and I'm obviously successful at them. So I'm going to show you what I do, and it's very general, but I think it will help. Okay, first things first, you're going to be nervous. That's normal. You should expect some anxiety, but that's okay because these feelings remind you that you care about being successful. And everybody's different, so you'll hear some people swearing by a particular test taking strategy. Maybe it works for them, but it may not necessarily work for you. When you're an experienced test taker, you do know what works for you, but if you're watching this, my suspicion is that maybe you're not quite so experienced and you're looking for some kind of tips. So in that case, you need to learn to find what works for you, and that's a process, but that's a process you can begin right now. But I want to give you an analogy because I was thinking about it and I thought that experienced test takers are really like champion boxers in that they know what rituals and techniques work for them, and they have a routine that the fighters will follow leading up to a fight. Same with test takers leading up to a test, they develop a routine. They put their mind in the right place. So fighters and basically successful people will do this. They'll engage in positive visualization. So they see themselves getting what they're after. Prize fighters always see themselves getting their hand raised. And they engage in positive self-talk. They'll say things to themselves like, I'm strong, I'm fast, I'm prepared, and I'm going to win. And that becomes their mantra. And effective test takers will say things to themselves also like, I'm smart, I'm ready, I'm going to do well. And this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you tell yourself you're going to do poorly, you're probably not going to do well. If you tell yourself what a great test taker you are, it will make a difference. Try it out. It's very much like a prize fighter. So let's talk about how we would prepare for the test. Preparation is the best way to minimize rational anxiety. By that I mean someone who has test taking anxiety on some levels. It's irrational. It doesn't matter how much they study, they're just always scared. That requires different strategies, but if you're more in the normal range, preparation is the best way to minimize your anxiety. What does that mean? That means you have to study. Seems obvious, but a lot of people wait till the last minute. They do this thing called cramming. Okay, don't do that. Avoid cramming. Learning the material at the last second is not a good strategy for learning in general, and it can produce anxiety because you're trying to cover all this material at the last second. I spent a lot of years in college classes, and I heard people talking about what a great payoff that cramming was because they got to mess around the whole class. They crammed the night before and they did well. Well, I would challenge them to show their test results to the people that they're telling that to, because my guess is there's a little bit of self-aggrandizing going on there. I doubt very much that they actually did that well if they crammed. What you want to do is study throughout the class. You set yourself up for success later, and you make your study load much smaller when you study as you go. Because really, what is the class? It's preparation for the test. So begin preparing from the beginning of the class. You don't have to wait till the week before the test to start doing this. Really focus on mastering the main concepts of the class. Don't get lost or caught up in the minutia. Look at what are the main concepts of the class and really master those. And if you're unable to cover all the material when you're studying, which is very likely, what you want to do is select sections which seem most relevant to the overall concepts of the class. So like I said before, at the beginning of the class, start to wrap your mind around what the key points of the class are. And then at the end, if you don't have time to go over all the material, focus on anything that covers those key points. And then try to anticipate what questions may be on the exam, because if you can do that, you can look the answers up now and then you'll be ready for it. And you can do it several ways. You call it the 3 R's if you want to. Review chapter quizzes. A lot of the time quiz questions, they'll pop up again on the test. So look them over again. Reread your lecture notes. And I have a video on how to take lecture notes. You can check it out. It also details how to study from them. But you need to go back through those lecture notes before the test. And then recall what the instructor seemed to focus on. So instructors will often tip their hand, and I mentioned this in the other video too. They'll clue you into what's going to be on the test because they have a tendency to rephrase the same thing over and over and over. And in a lot of cases, what they're trying to do is kind of prod you into realizing that that's probably going to be on the test. So if you pay attention to those types of things, you can give yourself a real good jump start. Okay, the night before the exam, get plenty of sleep. That may seem obvious, but a lot of people don't do it. Why don't they do it? Because they're trying to study, they're trying to cram. Again, don't do it. It's such a bad strategy. Don't stay up late studying. If you really have to study the night before the test, that's fine. If you feel like that's something you have to do, but stop at least 1 hour before bed. Otherwise, your mind will continue to race. You're not going to sleep well. It's and then you're going to wake up tired, and you're already off on a bad start. So give yourself time to relax and calm down. Get ready for sleep 1 hour before at least. And then when you're in bed, try to let go. If you find yourself lying awake and worrying, just tell yourself that now is the time for sleep and you can worry tomorrow. Otherwise, you're just going to rehearse what could be on the test over and over and over. You're not going to get any sleep. You got to let it go. And I know that's easier said than done, but you got to try. The day of the test, what should you do? Eat a good breakfast. Seems obvious, but sometimes people don't do it because they're nervous about the test. They don't feel hungry. But your brain needs energy, so get something down. And leave your house with enough time that heavy traffic won't cause you to be late, because you don't want to start off the test in a fluster because you're racing into class at the last second. Build that in. If you're late normally, then this is the day that you want to not do that. It really will help you if you have a chance to arrive on time and get settled before you take the test. Okay, some cautions. When you're seated, refrain from flipping through your notes or books. Why? You're thinking, well, this is a good opportunity to look up a few more answers. No, don't do it. And here's why. You may see a question that you don't know the answer to, or a topic that you forgot to study. Well, what happens when you see that is you start to get upset, and you may even panic, and you think, uh-oh, I didn't study this. Uh-oh, I hope this isn't on the. And what happens is when you panic, information gets temporarily driven from your mind, which causes you to become more upset. So it's this horrible cycle that you'll fall into, all because you just wanted to look up one more answer. Don't do it. When you're seated for the test, what you know is what you know. That's not the time to be looking anything up. And then here's a kind of a big one that a lot of people don't, maybe because they're worried about being rude, but avoid classmates who generate anxiety and tend to upset your stability. You're going to know who these people are because you've been in class with them. If they have a tendency to be worrywarts, maybe don't sit next to them on the day of the test. And don't discuss what may be on the exam with anybody. Why? Because speculation isn't going to help you. They don't know what's on the test. You don't know what's on the test. And again, what may happen is they're going to bring up a topic and say, well, this is probably going to be there. And you're going to realize that you didn't study it, and you're going to panic. You can't think when you're scared. So don't speculate. Don't talk with others about the exam. At this point, you know what you know. It's too late to compare notes. Okay, during the test, breathe. If you feel fear creeping in, find your breath. Take 3 long, calming breaths. Exhale very slowly, and I promise you will feel a little bit better. It's not going to make everything go away, but you are going to feel substantially better. And anytime you get afraid, just do that. It will help you. Tell yourself, I can be anxious later. Now is the time to take the exam. You really need to try and focus. Focus on answering the questions, not on what other people are doing in the room. Don't look around. It's not helpful. You see all these pens moving and yours isn't, and you're wondering how they could have thought of the answer before you did. These things all contribute to becoming defocused, becoming stressed, and you're not going to do well in the exam. So focus on answering the questions one at a time, not on what other people in the room are doing. Review the entire test. Well, what does that mean? That means flip through it. It doesn't mean read every question. You want to do that because you want to get an idea of how long you're going to need to plan. Most tests are timed, especially if there's some kind of writing component. You need to build that time into your strategy. So flip through the test, get an idea of how long it's going to be. Don't read every question because that will take too much time, but just flip it over and then read the directions twice, because sometimes directions will have something that says at the very end of it, do this but don't do that. And if you miss that, you're gonna foul up the whole test. So really read those directions twice. Go slowly on those. If you're taking an essay test and you go blank, I recommend doing a process called looping. I have a video on it. You can find it on my channel, but it's a good way to come up with a thesis. And it also works in tests because it's basically a free write for the blank mind. Check it out. It's pretty helpful. For multiple choice questions, read all the options first, then eliminate the most obvious. So you read the question, then you read all the options, and you may say to yourself, A, no, that's not it. B, oh, it's B. But D might have been actually a better answer, but you didn't get there because you were so focused on getting through the test, or that you were so certain that B was correct that you didn't even read D. So you want to make sure you read them all, and you may be able to eliminate the most obvious ones. You may look at them and say, well, I know it's not A. Okay, well, if you can do that, even if you don't know anything else, you've just improved your chances from 25%, a 1 in 4, to 33.3, a 1 in 3, because you were able to delete one of them that you were sure wasn't correct. And you may be able to make an educated guess and get it down to 50-50. Hopefully you know the answer, though. If others finish before you, don't panic. It's not a race. There's no extra points for finishing first. Some students will finish quickly. They're going to take it up to the desk. You're going to notice that. You're maybe going to start to worry. Don't worry about it. I don't really know. I think some people, they think it makes them look smart to turn in the test really quickly, or maybe they're just so, maybe they didn't study and they don't care. But if you see them do that, just tell yourself it's not a race. There's no extra points for finishing first. If you're not satisfied with your answers, spend time on them. Even if you're the last person in there, it's not important. What's important is that you do well on the exam. Okay, after the test, what should you do? You should reward yourself. Not just because you've earned it, but because it begins to build the neural pathways that associate taking exams with rewards. And this can have a big subconscious payoff later. So what happens is, the more you do this, it reinforces, and you start to associate on a subconscious level. You're not totally aware of it, but you associate the reward with taking an exam. And anticipation of a reward is one of the best ways to get rid of anxiety, because you can't really feel stressed if you know that it's all going to turn out well anyway and you're going to get your reward. A lot of this happens on the subconscious level, but it really does make a difference. So start rewarding yourself when you do a test. Okay, that's basically it. My YouTube channel is HS Language Arts. Thumbs up if you found this helpful. These are pretty general approaches, but each type of test is going to have a slightly different strategy. But if you're not sure where to begin, start with these, and I hope it will help you. And I'm happy to do a video on a specific type of exam if anybody wants that. Just drop a comment on this video, and I'll see what I can do. Thanks a lot.